Welcome. Hi. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Kim Luppino, Public Sector Strategist for High Growth SMEs at Lasila Education and Training. Today, I am talking you through this workshop called Demystifying Public Procurement. This workshop is for every SME that feels like they're losing public bids despite having the right solution. So let's get to it. You're not losing bids because you're not good. You're losing because you're invisible. Let's change that today. So, here are three strategic levers for you to win more bids and win more often. So these are the three key shifts top performing SMEs make. Firstly, they stop being late responders and become early influencers. So you'll learn to spot procurement triggers before the RFX is live. You engage buyers early with insight, not sales. Secondly, they evolve from being generic vendors to trusted options. So with this, you learn how to influence across the full buyer landscape, build trust with non-procurement decision makers. And lastly, they replace guesswork with repeatable wins. So I'll show you how to use the Win Smart framework to systematize winning, build internal bid discipline to scale consistently and win. You might be thinking, we need all three. Of course, you do need all three to be able to win and to be able to influence. Think for a moment. If you had to pick one shift that would change your next bid, which would it be? You can put your answers in the chat and we'll have a look at it later. So, I'm going to give you a 7-day action plan to implement immediately. And you are to incorporate these three key shifts into your bid planning. So here's what you need to do. Shift 1, influence early. And how do you influence early? You influence early by identifying 3 upcoming tenders that are specific, relevant to your niche, to your expertise and your market. You could also do this, influence early, by looking at the early stage buyer triggers. So what are triggering them to put out a launch and RFX? You need to send one proactive insight asset. Secondly, shift 2, build trust. How do you build trust? You build trust by mapping stakeholders beyond procurement. You engage one gatekeeper or budget holder and you share a de-risking result or example. And your third shift you're going to implement in your action plan is to systematize success. How do you do this? You run one of your current bids through the RPF lens. You benchmark it and score it against the bid fit scorecard, and then you start drafting with your internal win checklist. So let's have a look at what this Win Smart Blueprint framework is. So we use this framework to win bids ourselves and to support SMEs who also want to win. So the Win Smart framework is made up of 5 different components, and this is what they each do. So firstly, the bid fit diagnostic. This helps you to eliminate and stop wasting time on unwinnable bids. The win plan strategy helps you to align better with the buyer's priorities. So it removes poor alignment. Thirdly, the smart draft system helps you to minimize and remove vague generic bid content that doesn't match with what the buyer is looking for. Thirdly, compliance fast track. No more scrambling for case studies and policies to strengthen your position. And lastly, win-proof review. You're going to implement this because sometimes you bid and your bid do meet the spec, but it misses out because of low scoring. So this is what you need to implement in order for you to win and win successfully, consistently. And you apply this framework before, during, and after the bid. So let's have a look at procurement. So you all know public procurement in the UK is how public bodies buy goods and services from private suppliers like yourselves. So it is governed by strict compliance, transparency, and value for money rules. This is a 300 billion opportunity. It's not just about selling to government, it's about understanding compliance and visibility gain. So 90% of SMEs, and this is a huge number, fail not because of capability, but because of poor timing and positioning. So, your opportunity here is to engage earlier to shape demand and not reactively responding just so you can win. Of course, you want to win, but I'll show you the steps in order to win successfully, consistently, and to score highly. So let's look at the procurement funnel. So this is the procurement funnel. So most SMEs fail before they even start. And here's how. So the procurement funnel is a 4-stage funnel. And most decisions is made before the tender is even published. So the top suppliers, the 1% who win and win consistently, they influence the strategy phase. And this is the strategy phase. So the RFX is just the final expression of a decision that's already been shaped. For example, let's look at the pre-market engagement. So this is where early research is done. You have informal dialogue with the gatekeepers and the decision makers. Most SMEs do not show up at the pre-market stage. If you're not showing up here, you've already lost. You've already lost influence and credibility. How are they going to trust you? The second stage is the procurement strategy. So here, the buyer is doing internal planning. They are mapping the route to market. If you're applying or entering in the second stage, you've missed the chance to scope influence. The third stage is the tendering, so the RFX, formalization of documents, the rules, and the process. Most SMEs enter at this stage, and by that time, it is already too late. Stage 4 is evaluation and award. So scoring, panels, decisions. The decisions are already shaped. So goes back to my original point. The top 1% suppliers who win bids, they are influencing at the pre-market engagement. So consider this. Imagine you're watching a race and only joining at the last lap, which is stage 3. That's what bidding at the RFX stage is. So let's have a look at the procurement strategy. So this is what happens. Budget gets locked in. You can provide insight tied to funding drivers. If you're not acting at this stage, the solution you're offering will be mismatched to the budget. The scope is defined. For you as an SME to influence, you have to be able to go in, engage, share pain points and case studies that's going to strengthen your position. If you're inactive or you're coming in at stage 3, you aren't able to successfully solve the buyer's problem. Then there's the route to market chosen. This introduces compliance. You are able to offer alternatives and different frameworks. If you're entering here, you're locked out of the decision making. So, what do you do and how do you overcome this? So, procurement, there are triggers. These are the key triggers that drives buyers to start scoping. So whether it's policy shifts, funding drops, regulatory changes, or incumbent failure. So if there's a policy shift, could be something like new government priorities, net zero targets, Senate reforms. As an SME, you have to be able to strategically and carefully and seamlessly tailor your messaging to align with the new mandate. So you're not copying and pasting, it's not random, it's deliberate. If there's a funding drop, for example, local authority budget releases, NHS transformation funds, your strategy would be to track funding announcements and prepare early. Thirdly, any regulatory changes, so new compliance requirements, safety standards. How are you positioning yourself to be compliant and a future-proof solution? Incumbent failures, it does happen. Supplier underperformance, contract ending. What are you going to do in order to mitigate any known risk? How are you positioning yourself? So you have to be able to do these key things, perform these key actions in order to influence. So at each stage, there are opportunities to engage. So let's look at the timeline, the lead up to an RFX. So month 6,